Okay, so let's start with the cutting out. The pattern has got the pieces that you can either trace and cut out, or it has got the written dimensions on each pattern piece. So if you've got a rotary cutter and a cutting mat, you might find it a lot easier to just go by the dimensions on the pattern piece to cut your pieces out. So as you can see, first of all, we are looking at the inner panels, and the pattern asks you to cut out 4 of these pieces. So I've just used the dimensions. I've not cut out the paper pattern. I've just used the given dimensions to cut my 4 pieces. Okay, so the next pattern piece, again, you can either trace that rectangle or you can use the dimensions that are given to cut out all the pieces. And you also have got a slightly smaller piece that you need for the ring holder, and that's marked out with the dotted lines on the pattern. You need the interfacing for that as well. Okay, so we're going to start by putting the zip in one of the internal pockets, and we're going to do this by taking your zip, lying the zip face down onto the top of the pattern piece. So this is using the 2 pocket pieces within the cutout pieces. I'm sandwiching it in between the 2 pocket pieces, leaving an overhang on either side, because don't worry about this, these will get trimmed off later on. So just sandwich the raw edge of the zip in between those 2 pocket pieces. And once you've done that, you're going to use a zip foot, if you've got one, just to sew along halfway between the edge of the fabric and the teeth of the zip. Okay, so you can see I've done that now. And there we have one half of the zip sandwiched between the 2 pocket pieces. You're going to do exactly the same for the other side of the zip. So just sandwich in your zip in between the 2 pocket pieces. Okay, just making sure the edges line up with the edges of the other side of the zip that you've just sewn in place. And then if you've got clips, use these. That's much easier than pins. If you don't have them, don't worry, just pop some pins in. But I do recommend these clips. They're very easy. Okay, so there we go. That's both sides of the zip. Well, one side sewn in, and I'm about to go and sew that final side in again, halfway between the edge of the zip and the teeth of the zip. Okay, so there we go. You're just going to press, well, I think I'm just opening the zip just to show. There you go. There's the lining inside. Now give it a press. Just position the fabric so that it looks nice and straight across the zip there. Go and give it a press once you've got it all lined up how you like it, and just top stitch a couple of millimeters away from that folded edge of each side of the zip. So just go give it a press with the iron first to make sure it's nice and flat. Right, now we're going to move on to using one of the inner panels. So we cut 4 of these. One of them is for the center pocket. So you're going to fold that in half, wrong sides together, and press it. And just give a line of top stitching across the top just to hold it in place. You're going to pop that pocket on top of the centre pocket panel, which is just another one of those rectangles, and pop it aside. Now grab the ring holder piece of fabric, attach the fusible fleece to the wrong side of the fabric, and we're just going to quickly sew this together before we start sewing any of the panels together. So just sew with right sides together, sew a row of stitching along the long edge, and once you've done that, we're going to be turning it the right way round. So you might want to just sew up one of the shorter ends as well, because it really does help when turning the correct way round. So just sew down one side and across a bottom edge. Once you've done that, you can trim any corners and any seam allowances, just so there's less bulk on the ring holder when we're turning it through. If you've got a chopstick or a blunt pencil, then you can use this now to help turn it. I always find it quite helpful once I've managed to get it ready to turn, is popping it on the sewn up end and then being careful not to poke through the stitches. It takes a little bit of fiddling to get going. Sometimes it's easier to lean it against your chest whilst you're just pushing the fabric over the chopstick or the blunt pencil. There you go. Can you see? Once you do that, it's ever so easy to get it turned the right way, and then you can use the point of the chopstick or the pencil just to poke out the corners. Okay, so once you've done that, you're going to give it a press and you would have completed the ring holder. Okay. Once you've done that, grab one edge of the popper, one side of the popper, and sew it to the finished edge of the ring holder. So that's ready now, you can pop that aside. Okay, so we're going to grab the 3 panels. You've got the zip pocket panel, the centre panel, and the ring panel. And we're going to sew these together. So you're going to grab the one where you've just prepared the pocket, and that one's going to be in the middle. And then you're going to grab the panel that has got the zip on it. There we go. So you're going to pop the zip on top of the back panel, so you've got a back to the little pocket that you've created. So just line the edges up, so you've got the zip pocket on top of the zip panel, lined up all those raw edges at the top and the bottom. Then grab the pocket which is on top of the pocket panel, lie them right sides together, and we're going to sew along that long seam where I'm just applying the clips. I know it sounds a bit confusing with all these panels, but actually, if you just think about these 3 panels, one for the zip pocket, one for the centre pocket, and one for the ring pocket. There we go. As you can see now, we've got a pocket panel sewn in place. You've got the zip panel on the left-hand side, and we're now going to sew the remaining panel, which is going to be the ring panel, to the right-hand side there. So then you'll have the 3 panels sewn in place. Okay, so once you've done that, just give those seams a press. Grab the ring holder that we prepared earlier. You might want to shorten it a bit. I just chopped off about 1.5 inches. I think I just wanted it a little bit shorter, so it wasn't going to be hanging too low on my sewing roll. So just position it, decide if you want to chop anything off. I just chopped off the end there, 1.5 inches about. And then you can mark out where you're going to be placing it. So make sure you clip that in place so that it's straight. And then you get your 3 pieces of elastic. These are going to act as little holders for necklaces and bracelets. And these are going to be pinned or clipped in the centre panel. And as you can see, you've got the little pocket just below that we prepared earlier. That then becomes somewhere that you can drop any long necklaces, but to stop them getting tangled up, you can use these elastics that we're going to clip along the top of that middle panel. Okay, get your long piece of ribbon and fold it in half and just place the folded end, just making sure it's not twisted. I always do that and it's so annoying once it's twisted. Okay, so once it's not twisted, you're going to place that folded end against the raw edge of the left-hand side of the bag, of the wrap, sorry, and you're just going to clip that in place. You want those ribbons to be tucked out the way so that they don't get caught in any sewing. So you can either, well, I was going to pop them in that little zip pouch, but then chose to pop them in the little pocket in the centre there, just to keep them out the way. Okay, so you're going to get the interfacing, attach it to that outer piece of fabric, And as you can see, the 1 centimetre seam allowance has been left as a gap around the edge of the interfacing. You're going to pop that right sides together. Now this is where you realise that the pockets are slightly shorter than the width or the depth of the outer panel. It's okay. You're going to start by sewing the top seam first. So just readjust your clips or your pins to make sure that the elastic and the ring panel are caught in between the 2 layers. And you're going to sew the first line across. So the first row of stitching, that top seam is going to be sewn first. Once you've done that, we're going to then adjust the outer panel so that the raw edges run aligned with the bottom of those 3 panels. I'm just tucking that ribbon out the way because it poked out the side and we don't want to sew over that. And once you've done that, we're going to sew across that bottom seam. And as you can see, there's a lot of excess fabric, but that is there for a reason, which I'll come to in just a moment. So you sew the top seam up first and then sew the bottom seam, making sure that all the raw edges are aligned. You can chop off the ends of the zip now if they're in the way. You don't need those, so feel free to chop those off. Okay, so once you've done that, that ribbon keeps escaping, so pop it back in. There you go, I've cutting my zip off now. And the idea is to have a little bit of movement in your roll by having some pleats, and this is going to provide some shape to your jewellery roll. You can do your pleats, well, I made mine a little bit central. I actually think it might have worked better if I made my pleats further towards the top and bottom seam, but it's up to you. And I just created a pleat so that my fabric lace then laid flat in order to sew it. So I've made 2 little pleats, both facing towards each other. And once I've done that, as you can see, it's now flat and I can sew a nice flat seam across one side. And you're going to do that for both sides, and it creates just a nice little sort of bit of shape to your jewellery roll. Not forgetting to leave a gap. That's what I was just telling you there with my finger. So one side you're going to leave a gap for turning. So as you can see, I'm just doing exactly the same. I'm going to fold in a little pleat so that that wider top panel becomes the same width as the bottom panel. When you turn it out, you get more of a feeling as to why we do that. It just adds a little feature, helps it roll up nicely. It gives a little bit more shape for you to fit lots of jewellery in. So it really does sort of add a little bit of something to your jewellery wrap. Okay, so when you've done that and you've just readjusted your clip with the ribbon, sew along all the way across that side. So we're going to leave a little gap on the left. So we're going to sew over the first pleat, back stitch, sew over the second pleat and back stitch. So once you've done that and you've sewn the sides up, leaving a gap, you can trim your seam allowances, you can clip your corners. You can see there's a little bit of a shape going on there, and that's from the pleats. And I do start to trim some of the seam allowances. It just reduces some of the bulk. It's not necessary too much because the interfacing was not applied to the whole of the piece. It was cut so that there was a gap in the seam allowance. I think actually, I give up trimming there. Let's just clip the corners instead. Okay, so once you've done that, we're going to turn all the way through that hole that you've left on the side seam. Okay, so as you can see, we're now clipped, corners are clipped. I'm struggling, this is where you wish you'd left a bigger hole. I'm struggling to fit my hand in, so just try and turn your jewellery wrap through the gap. does take a little bit of patience. And it is slowly starting to come through. I think it's when I'm filming, I become all fingers and thumbs. But I won't speed it up. I'll let you sit and watch the joys of me turning my jewellery wrap through. Here it comes. Ta-da! Okay, so just spend a little bit of time pushing out your corners. And eventually you will see it take some shape. Okay, so just going to push out those corners, go and give it a press. Being careful not to press your elastic. You can fold those elastics down and run over the top when you do your top stitching, which will stop them from flipping up like that. I did press the elastics down and they melted a bit, so don't do what I did, but go and give it a nice press, and then you can top stitch across the top, so stitch in the ditch across the top and the bottom seams there. So as you can see, that outer fabric is slightly wider, so you've got a bit of a border in the top and the bottom. So stitch in the ditch just to hold everything down. Don't forget to sew the other side of the popper on. So you just want to make a little mark as to where your popper stops, and then go and sew that in place. And then once it's in place, you have got your ring holder. Okay, so well done. Look how great this is. You've got a little pocket there for any bangles or bits and bobs you want. You can hang your necklaces or bracelets and pop the ends in that little pocket. And then you've got your ring holder. So, let's test it out with my with my engagement ring. So as you can see, you can pop your rings on your ring holder, secure it in place with the popper, and then everything rolls together nicely. You've got the shape from the pleats, and there you go. I think it's pretty fabulous, and I'm going to be gifting mine to my Auntie Sally for Christmas because I think she'll love it when she goes on one of her many caravanning holidays. There you go. Hope you enjoyed the project.